I had to start educating myself on how the other asset classes work to balance my portfolio. And I'm really glad that I did that, because if I just pushed it back in multifamily in 2020, when I sold everything in 2019, I would be clobbered right now.
Welcome back to Real Investing, where we talk about real investing for the everyday investor. Tim Harridge here with
Ryan Harper.
And our special guest, fresh from somewhere in the world, Will Crozier. How you doing, man?
I'm great.
So I've been following you on social media for a long time, and we just kind of had a little chit chat, but I'm going to actually not talk about anything we just talked about. Credit card points. He starts laughing. Like, you're big into this. Like, and
I do.
You share openly with people. You're like, no,
Sure.
Get this, get that.
Sure.
I think I saw one time you're like in the little upstairs suite thing of a Dubai plane.
Yeah.
Where did you learn all that, and how, just talk about that for a second.
Sure. Well, I had an import company importing construction materials from China and also buying stuff locally, and I was able to swipe my credit card a lot. I also at the same time had a property management company, and so there's a lot of opportunity to swipe my credit card and charge. And at first I had no clue of what I was missing out on. Someone kind of whispered in my ear, like, you should at least be getting cash back on this or whatever. But I started studying the travel blogs, these guys that are just, that's all they do. And they have the 1 mile at a time, the points guy. These guys would talk about getting $20,000 flights for free with your credit card points. And I'm always long haul. I'm always over to Asia. I'm over to Europe or wherever. Sitting in economy class on those is just miserable.
No, thank you.
I mean, especially larger gentlemen like we are, you need a little room to spread out. So I really got into that. I love it. I'm charging everything, and I know which card I got to charge onto what and which airline it will go to, so that I can, I've been at bars in the sky. You're on a A380 with a walk-up bar and a little lounger hanging out with the other people. I took a shower in the air once on the way from Dubai to Bangkok. I've had a whole full-size bed and closed the doors and had some adventures in the sky that way too. So we won't get too detailed into that. But
It's funny because it's like
times.
those are the stuff you see like on movies or Lifestyles, the Rich and Famous, and you're like, on part of you, you're like, is that a real thing? And then you're like, it is real. And then it's like, why would anybody pay that much money to do that? But then it's like, I haven't been on an international flight in many years, but the last time I used, when I lived in Dubai, that flight, if you're in economy class, the one thing that you're in this tiny seat and it's uncomfortable for 10, 12 hours, whatever it was, but you forget there's a lot of people and families coming to America. So if you think you're gonna luck out and get the emergency aisle, which is great, what you really have is a daycare center right in front of you for 10 hours. So I can see the appeal.
Yeah.
Well, just the other day, I realized that Valentine's Day is on a Thursday this next year, and that Monday's President's Day, and I was like, hey, hon, why don't we take that 5 days and go to Europe or something? She was like, oh my God, or her birthday's in January. So let's do either January or February, let's go. She's like, all right. So she starts looking around, and there was a promotion going on with Hilton. It was, you could transfer your Amex points to Hilton points, and last week it was double the points. So she didn't even have a Hilton account. Now she has 350,000 points. Well, then she was looking on their hot stays or something. It's like if she needed 100,000 more points, and then she could book this room, the nicest hotel in Florence, Italy. And if you booked it all on points, the 5th night was free.
Yeah.
So it was one of these crazy, weird things.
Yeah.
And so now we're going to Florence.
Okay.
So there's a lesson that I don't know if I've told you, but I'm doing the executive MBA program at SMU.
Oh, great.
What I've learned, if you want the points, you just need to have family that owns the hotels. Because I have a friend there, their family owns 150 hotels, and she has all the top rewards because they own all the hotels. I'm like, so that's how you get the super black, diamond, sapphire, emerald level.
Well, so then this is actually, now we get back to advice part, not just shoot to shit. Actually, on the way here today, we're kind of finishing up our first year at Ternus, and we did it with no operating lines, no credit cards, just really trying to be not cash basis, but as cash basis as possible, not wanting to get into any operating debt, that kind of thing. So now we kind of like, the proof is in the pudding, and like we have pudding now. So it's like, okay, well, let's get smart about this. And on the way here, I was texting her. I was like, hey, I need you to get with Alicia, my controller, and y'all need to figure out if we're going Amex or City Cards or Chase or whatever. So, Mr. Guru, business card. Next year we spend 80 to 100 grand a month on credit cards. Where should I go?
Chase has a really good program that lets you transfer to different travel partners or to different hotels. But you really want to have a portfolio of cards. This card you use for your cell phone bill, this card you use for gasoline, this card you use for Home Depot, this card, and they'll have different bonus categories. So each time you're spending, you're hitting the right bonus to where you're just really multiplying points, really multiplying. But there are some cards like Chase Inc. It's a very business-friendly card, and it's not stuck inside like Chase World. You can transfer it out to all these different airlines, all these different hotels. So that's a good solid starting one, but you'll probably want 3 or 4 cards you're using.
Well, we're big into like the Citibank, the American Airlines cards because we're
here.
Use that a lot.
Right.
But all right, so fine. So is there like an algorithm or a box, or like where do I get the list?
I would probably check out the points guy. He's kind of like the main, I'm not a guru compared to that guy. I just keep reading what he's saying. So I would check out him for business credit cards and see what he's recommended for each spend.
So where does that interest come from? Is that from just like, hey, I have a side hobby, or is it because you saw a benefit and you're like, let me double down, triple down, quadruple down on that benefit? And then that's a larger question, because you could extract that question, apply it to multifamily 1031 exchanges, to the Bitcoin mining, to oil and gas. So,
well, I learned that I was leaving a lot on the table. My ignorance was costing me a lot of money. So I liked to travel, and I knew that I could use a credit card to get cash back. But that's really one of the most minimal rewards you can get is cash back. It's too easy, right? There's no threshold, there's no knowledge you have to jump over. So it's too easy to get cash. So if I get cash back, I'm maybe getting 2% back. You're doing your cards right, you're doing your points right, you can get 10% back, 20% back. If you're doing kind of like what you're saying, like watching the sales come along, watching the hot picks, hot takes and all of that. Where it came from was just the love of travel, the fact that I was spending and spending and spending for business anyway, and that someone kind of informed me I was just leaving a lot on the table.
I'd like to expand on that, because I find myself, because even though I have a team, when it comes to like the operations or biz dev, I'm kind of, solo there, because everybody in the team has their distinct roles that they play. Whereas like sales or business development or that's pretty much only on me. I still use a team for advice, but what I find myself doing a lot of is, time value money. It's like, okay, I understand I'm losing money over here, but is it worth correcting? Like the time it would take to correct it, is it worth it? Hey, I had a $50 charge on web hosting. It was double charge. And after 15 minutes of trying to go to customer service, I'm like, I'm wasting so much time for $50. So how would you balance that out?
Well, you kind of have to set your own natural cost per hour, your own wage in your head about what is your value, what is your time. When I started dealing with these cards and things, it's tens of thousands of dollars, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars. So sure, I'll count that as worth my while.
Right.
I'm the same as you. A lot of stuff I'll just discount it, be like, I'm throwing that away. I don't care. I want sanity. I want peace.
But I think it's what gives you energy, like travel. You love travel.
Sure, yeah.
And I love travel. My wife loves travel, but I also love free shit. Like I have worked really hard to build what I build, and like there is like the best alert I get is like Sonic or Chick-fil-A or someone telling me I get something free. Like for some reason, it makes me
better.
Really happy.
It tastes way better and it's free.
And like Jennifer, this is what she loves to do on a Saturday afternoon. Like start looking through all these places we can go. It's kind of like you're shopping with house money almost. Like it's kind of like, so I agree kind of have a little strategy. This makes sense to me. What you told me, you have 3 or 4 cards you use, maybe start with 1 or 2, have a strategy, and then make it fun or rewarding where it's not a job. It's taking what you're already doing and enabling you to do more of what you love.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, most of our phones these days, you can just load the credit card into your phone and you just have your 3 basic buckets. I'm getting food, I'm doing a business expense, or it's some financial transaction.
Yeah.
Keep it simple. I could get much more crazy with it and get every minute, but that's overboard. And I would rather just go, I'll get 1.5 points for that, worth it.
So, because there's some people that, like one guy that I heard speak at you could even pay your payroll with credit cards, and I'm over here like, someone's charging me for that, right? So don't go incur expense. It's like the when we were young in business, I was the idiot, like, oh, don't worry, it's a write-off. It's like, no, well, dude, you're broke, so you're not writing anything off. You're actually just spending money you don't need to.
Yeah, it's tax deductible.
Yeah, it's write off. I'm a business owner. It's like, no, you're broke.
So
whatever.
what I'd like to get in real quick too is move past credit cards and move more towards like all the businesses you're in, because like for all the time I've known you, I know you do a lot, but I also see you as kind of like a monolith, a solo guy, and maybe that's just because the way you don't really put yourself on the internet. So I don't really see you have like a team of assistants, whatever. But obviously, you have a company that has to do this, a company that does this, a company does this. Like, do you have like a central holding company team that manages everything, or are you just such a big brain that you are able to manage everything?
No central holding, and I'm terrible. I'm like one of the least smart people out there. I get confused. I get distracted. I rely on my teams for everything, and it's teams with an S. It's multiple teams around the world. Folks here do this for me, folks there do that for me. And I partner well. I always partner with people who plug all my holes, and I have so many gaps in my knowledge base and experience that I can't function without them. So I'm very, very careful in choosing my partners, and generally speaking, they often have with them the mini teams that you're talking about. The things I'm doing in the Philippines, both the nonprofit and the for-profit, the things I'm doing here in oil and gas, things I'm doing here for Bitcoin, the things that I'm doing here for multifamily, for building multifamily. It's all different teams. I'm partners in all of them. I'm not the only guy in any of them, so people kind of watching my back, I'm watching their back. But yeah, I depend on them completely.
So let's get into that. Because the partnership role is such a huge aspect of it, because obviously you're relying on them. How do you identify a good partner, and what makes you go yes or hell no?
Generally, if there's not big red flags immediately, I'll give anything a try. Like if there's something telling me don't mess with this guy, I'll try a business and I'll try something small. If it goes well, even if it doesn't go well, but I see their character, I see their code of conduct, I see how they're treating me, I'll be like, let's go again. Let's ratchet up, let's scale this thing. So generally it's through trial and error. I have so many failures. Like, I think people say that to be glib or sound humble or something. No, I fail at everything. But when I grab something that wins, I grab on tight and just keep on cranking and scale that up.
And let's you've defined win. Like, what is something what is winning in your book?
Well, if we're talking about business, clearly it's a financial win. I mean, and to me anymore, a financial win is something that really moves the needle. So it used to be flipping a house and making 50 grand really moved the needle, and that was important. Now, it needs to have several more zeros on it for it to significantly change my lifestyle or the trajectory of my businesses. So, it has to be millions now to really move that needle. And if it's not doing that, I would consider it a loss in business. Now, there's lots of other wins in life, right? So we could get into that. But
so there's hey, I'm doing this because I want to, because it's cool, or I'm trying to make money.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah,
Very distinct.
What he's saying is he's not really looking at business altruistically. Like, if he's going to spend his time for a low return, it might as well be like something philanthropic, not to, make 50 grand or 100 grand, So it's interesting. You said something. I was talking to my barber today, and he said something about he never wanted a partner. He just wanted to be, he always thought he'd do it on his own. I just kind of found myself laughing, just like you. I was like, I was asked to me on a podcast one time, like, tell me about the first deal you ever did on your own. And I can honestly say, I have never, maybe not never, but never that I remember, been the only principal in a transaction. I've always had a wife or a business partner or a lender or like, I think too many people really do believe that they can do shit on their own. But I'm with you. Like, I would much rather, what's the old, you want to go fast, go alone, you want to go far, go together? I would just much rather have a partner and win together.
I agree, and sometimes it's not even a personality thing. Some of the bigger businesses, the bigger deals, the large portfolio multifamily deals you do, it's logistically impossible to do it yourself. First, there's not enough time. But then you talk to lenders, you talk to contract. You need to pool your experience together, to pool your finances together. You're not going to pull it off alone. No one does, Rod.
Well, just to dovetail to this, if you look at the richest individuals in the world, they own 6% or 8% or 12% of their companies.
Yeah.
That should tell you everything.
Yeah.
If they're like this multi-billion dollar net worth and they only own a fraction of their company, that should tell you everything.
That used to confuse me. It seemed like, why are you messing around with 10% of that? But Berkshire, that's all they do. It's like 5% there, 15% there, not controlling interest, but that's how they play it.
Right.
So I've seen your name associated with a lot of our Dallas-Fort Worth friends with regards to cryptocurrency, Bitcoin. As we sit here and record it today, what is it at 100,000 or got really close to 100,000? When did you kind of look at that asset class and think, wait a second, there's something there?
I always had, since 10 years ago, I've had people saying, look at it. I didn't.
Me too.
Yeah, just disregard that. But you hear it enough times from people you trust. It's different if it's just random noise, but you're like, that guy's freaking genius. Like, he's already rich. Why is he involved in that? I heard it enough times to where maybe 5 years ago, I started really rolling up my sleeves and getting dirty and trying to understand it. And I didn't get it at first. And I get people sending me my own posts from social media, be like, look what you said. Like, you said it's totally gambling. You're wasting your time. You're wasting your money.
But you said it. It's when you finally heard it from somebody you trust.
Yeah.
Because the first people I heard talking about it were before they were talking about that, they were guruing real estate.
Yeah.
And we all know what we're talking about there. So it's like, if that guy is telling me that, yeah, I'm not buying into that. But then like if you or like a Mac Lawson or one of these guys or Yale or these guys that I trust, and like if you're telling me that, I'm like, oh, I should look into that. But again, it's, do you trust that person or are they clearly full of shit?
Well, and that's one reason. I don't try to be too vocal about the business stuff, just throw out some things once in a while. But I felt like I do have that much credibility with some of my friends in my life. So I'm going to actually talk about it a bit to lend any of my own credibility, my own business common sense. I've got a lot of investors I've dealt with. Kind of let them know, hey guys, I'm looking at this. I'm looking at it seriously. This isn't a fad. This isn't like a get rich quick scheme. This is something I'll probably be in for 100 years. Hope my kids keep carrying the torch forward. And I'll be clear, I'm talking about Bitcoin. Crypto and Bitcoin to me are very different things, and I'm talking about Bitcoin.
Well, for me, keep going down the Bitcoin, and this will go into your next endeavor, is for me, it was all the same. But then when I started with the Texas Blockchain Council and I started seeing the infrastructure side of it and seeing how many billions of dollars were going into the data centers, to the energy development, and just seeing how all that was coming to play. And we're not talking about this small dinky little building. We're talking about massive, massive data centers that take massive amounts of electricity. One of the coolest things I ever did was I was in a super secret meeting, not me, but I was in the room with all the top Bitcoin miners in ERCOT. And this was about 2 or 3 years ago. And it was funny because ERCOT is this, government, bureaucratic, slow-moving thing, and you got the Bitcoin miners are like, let's go, let's go, let's go.
ERCOT is the Energy Reliability
Yeah,
something
they're like
council
the
of
managing
Texas. Yeah.
body that they don't do anything other than manage.
Well, just for the listener, you
Yeah,
gotta
yeah.
know what ERCOT is.
But to summarize how that meeting went was the ERCOT guys were like, so what you're telling us is y'all need the amount of electricity new on the grid that equals like New York City, and they're like, no, we want like 5.
5 New Yorks.
They want 5, and they're like, and you just saw them. Maybe it was 3, but it was not 1. And their face was just like, you could just see them almost have a heart attack, just because it was so foreign to them. But all that to be said is the infrastructure side, which is I feel like what you're getting into now.
Sure. Yeah, I have a firm with my partner Jason Sharp. We do oil and gas exploration. We've got funds about to deploy next week. We'll be drilling a bunch of oil wells. And what we found, as we were talking about points earlier, is when you realize that you're leaving.
Are you buying oil wells, drilling on points? Because that would be that you
Like the car.
buried the lead on that one. Screw your first class flight.
But he's producing what it takes to power the other is where I think this is
I
going.
think that's where it's going. When we're talking about the points, I realize I'm leaving something on the table. And the price of natural gas right now is nothing. And a lot of times when you drill these new wells, you have natural gas coming out of the ground, and sometimes you've got no pipeline. You got no pipeline to tie that into, so you just light it on fire and burn it into the atmosphere. Methane. It's really a waste of energy. I don't find that it's environmentally responsible. I'm not a tree hugger. I'm not a green person whatsoever, but I don't really want to go there and breathe it at the same time. I know. So within reason. But that's just wasted energy. And so that's something that we're doing now is with our Bitcoin mining. We bring out data centers right out to the well. We have large industrial style generators, gen sets that run on this natural gas that would otherwise be burnt or vented directly into the atmosphere. And we create electricity with that, and we power our data centers. And we mine Bitcoin in the middle of the Panhandle or Kansas or wherever we've got a flare gas stack, a vented gas asset.
And are you getting multiple wells, multiple flares to go to one data center, or is one well like how much electricity does one well give to? Because I mean, how many miners how many megawatts come from one well is what I'm trying to get to.
So if it's a good sized well, you can get a megawatt out of a single well, if not more. And a megawatt will power 300 to 400 ASIC miners, which is it's an impressive thing. You walk in there, it doesn't look like a small operation whatsoever, like swing the door open. Right. So we're gonna keep drilling. I signed a contract last month with the largest private oil producer in the United States. They're flaring so much gas, they're starting to get in trouble with the EPA. They've got satellites up in space looking for methane emissions and where they're coming from, and if they don't fix them soon, they're gonna start getting fined. We're talking 40%, 50%, 60% added per year if they don't clean this up. So they're actually chasing us down. What can you do to help us mitigate this flare gas? They don't want to turn off their oil well.
Right.
They need to do something, but it's so isolated, it's so remote, it's stranded gas that they're asking people like us to come in for free and mine. So it's free energy for us to mine Bitcoin. I mean, it's really the dream scenario.
Right.
So
You're being environmentally conscious.
Don't laugh, don't smile. It's good what we're doing for the environment, but the
You can't say it
motivation.
with a straight face
The
either.
motivation is
Is
to
this
earn
an
money.
18-wheeler trailer? Like, what is
40-foot shipping container turned into a data center. Yep. And they'll house 400 ASIC miners, little square computers that just suck down energy. Each one is like a hairdryer on maximum mode. So they really just suck, 3,000, 4,000 watts times 300 or 400. So it's a massive energy consumption.
But the thing is also, what about the when you're doing a deploying a site like that? When you're doing a traditional site, you have to have transformers to get the power from the lines and go through the transformer and do its magic. But like last time I checked, there's at least a 6-month to 18-month waiting list for those things. For something like this, is because you're building a generator and you're going straight to it, is it different logistics, different technology that you don't have that long wait time?
Yeah, we can deploy much faster. And if the economics of it change, we can move our mine. We're not physically located in a data center
Right.
somewhere. So it's not cheap to move a mine, but it's $50K and not there's our $50 million business warehouse with
Right,
you know, nothing to do with it.
It's crazy. It's good stuff. You know, but when you look at an investment like that,
Can I have one?
a miner or
I want the shipping container with the ASIC thingies.
I mean, do it.
I was gonna grab Brian sometime to come out and take
Let's
some
do
video
it.
and tour
Let's
it.
do it.
We're deploying down there at Galveston right now with flare gas.
Well, Paul and I, we filmed the Satoki mine, their mine, like maybe 4 months ago, and I have a call with them on tomorrow to like schedule another tour. But mindset-wise, because you've done all these different businesses, and we've talked about on this program before, where business is business. How does that separate from real estate? Is it all business, or is like you look at it like, hey, this is a rental property, or how do you translate all these different business opportunities, and how does it, you know, integrate or with your real estate mind?
I'll try to answer that in some kind of a coherent answer.
I mean, better than how I asked it.
I'm very simple-minded. Like I don't like an overly cluttered, my money's here and it's here and I got to worry about that. I like to keep it simple. But after I made, you know, a very nice return in the multifamily run-up from 2010 to 2020, I made enough for myself and for my kids and for several generations, and I needed to put it somewhere. And I couldn't really just dump it all back in the multifamily. I mean, things were super hot. I needed to exit that space for a while, let it cool down. So I had to educate myself a bit and move it other places. So now I'm in equities. I sell covered calls and I make monthly payments that way. I moved into Bitcoin. I started buying a lot of small businesses because of the cash flow is really, really strong on those. So I had to start educating myself on how the other asset classes work to balance my portfolio. And I'm really glad that I did that, because if I just pushed it back in multifamily in 2020, when I sold everything in 2019, I would be clobbered right now. Like all my contemporary peers that do what I was doing, and they just stuck through it and called me kind of foolish or for running away from the asset class. I'm just like, I sold that asset 10 years ago for 13,000. I bought it for 13,000 a door. I sold it for 40, and now you want me to buy it back for 140,000. Like something is wrong with these numbers. It's literally more than 10 times the price of what I bought it for, the same assets. So I'm not sure if I'm getting to the final answer. You're asking these businesses I'm working on, is it all just the same as real estate? How do I manage them in my mind? It's balancing a portfolio. It's being an asset manager. It's sort of more along the lines of family office thinking. What's their long-term strategy? How to park money to reduce the taxes. It's letting them all kind of intercooperate with each other, balance each other out.
What he just said reminded me back in the REI Expo days. Remember Chris Danefeld?
Is the one,
Pilot education
the one
teacher guy?
that drove like he was like the richest guy there and drove like a Bronco from like
Yeah.
87.
Yeah.
Passed away.
Yeah, he passed away. But I remember part of what he would say in his speech, because he had seen enough downturns, was you need to decide how much the last 5% is worth. And it's kind of what Will was saying. It's if you exited in 20 instead of 21, yeah, you left some money on the table. If you exited in 22 instead of 21, you lost a lot of money, right? Like, I mean, because as soon as the Fed started moving rates in early 22, cap rates went, right? And multifamily just got obliterated. So I personally respect what you just said, because it's like, look, yeah, I could have stayed around for another 5 or 10% increase, but I quadrupled. I'm good. I'm going to be disciplined with my money and my investments. And now it's wealth preservation versus wealth accumulation.
Well, it's also following the money. Like you did single family real estate for what, 15 plus years? And then you, not overnight, but then you started reading the writing on the wall, which is like the paper is the real money.
Yeah.
So now you're a lender.
Yeah.
I mean, you still do real estate, but the real money.
I wish I didn't. Keep telling my wife, like, stop.
But my point being is the real money is the scalability of what you're currently doing versus the single family houses.
Yeah, I mean, look, most
Not to shit on single family.
No, I mean,
homes.
look, the bulk of my wealth is still in my single family real estate.
Yeah.
I pride myself on being an asset guy and being able to really look at it from the point of view of I can always say people behind the paper, because I still know what it's like to be the seller or the buyer or the wholesaler or the flipper. I'm like, it's very important that you stay connected to that,
Yes.
the users. But yeah, I mean, look, if I'm going to loan you $200,000 on a $300,000 asset, that I would, if I'm going to loan you $200,000 on a $250,000 home, and that's what I would pay for it, why not loan it to you? Because not only do I have the surety of the asset, but now I've got you and your money and your credit in, as well. So it's like I've de-risked the transaction, and now you're the one that has to do all the hard work, and I can actually multiply and scale.
But my overall point is, say you didn't start Ternus and you stayed in the single family real estate world, and then when you're 50, you're like, I want to exit. And you would have a very comfortable exit.
Correct.
Or you spend the next 5-10 years building Ternus, and then all of a sudden, instead of a comfortable exit, you have a significant exit.
Yeah, and the beautiful thing is like what Will said. I have a business now that produces revenue. I mean, we did over $1 million in revenue in our first year. It's not great, but 8 months, 10 months. But that's without counting the interest income, because all that goes into our fund. So if you were to actually do a revenue recapture from kind of that controlled business, now it looks really good. You start backing out EBITDA, and we did it all without any debt or leverage. It's all just been our own cash. Now we start applying warehouse lines and debt or leverage against it, and now the velocity we have, but also more importantly, the most important thing is I have a business with a leadership team, with an infrastructure and revenue stream that I can sell, that I can say, hey, would you like to look at this on an EBITDA model? If so, here you go.
Yep.
One thing that I alluded to this earlier today when I was talking to Jonah Williams, and the epiphany I had with that conversation was starting with the exit in mind. And I think in single family real estate world, it's you start with how do I get to the next deal? And you never think in terms of starting with the exit. And from that conversation with him, the only way you can exit is if you have the right leadership, the right teams, the right processes, all the roadmaps in place. And if you're just starting, obviously you don't have all that. You're just like, let me just go to the next thing. But like if you start with the exit in mind, which I don't think real estate people generally don't do, because and from my point of view, in my opinion, I think real estate people, they think in terms of buying and holding or flipping and wholesaling and just do it to the next deal, almost like a hit of drugs almost, versus like, hey, what does the future hold?
It's not a business. I mean, they have a job, and their
Exactly.
job is
100%.
rental real estate, flipping real estate, and so they don't think like business people. And yeah, there's no exit in mind whatsoever.
Well, the exit is actually confused with the legacy. I think the bulk of the customers I've worked with in the last 20 years, they believe, just like I did when I got into this, my whole thing was I was gonna have 40 houses free and clear when I turned 40. To me, at that time, that was like more wealthy than I ever imagined I would be.
Sure.
I mean, back then, you were thinking they'd be worth 150,000, not 400,000. But I mean, I'm worth, $8-9 million bucks, and I make $15,000-$20,000 a month.
Yep.
As a 22-year-old Marine, that was a pretty good vision.
Yep.
And you just mentioned the legacy you've left your kids and your kids' kids, right? Like, I think people get into it thinking they're going to leave a legacy and not realizing, and again, we're not shitting on single family real estate, but how many times do we buy houses in this business from the kids that inherited a portfolio, right? Because it was dad or mom's skill set that kept that thing together.
Yeah.
And when they leave it to them, they're just kind of like, yeah, I'll take the money. So I think people need to think about the exits so that they're actually better positioning their family for a real legacy that's not skill dependent.
So with the exit being the topic of conversation, me personally, when I started Harper Belmont, I didn't think of that at all. I was just like, hey, I think it'd be cool. First of all,
It's a great name.
Thank you. It's my last name and my street I live on.
I know.
I was watching Wolf of Wall Street, Stratton Belmont. That's a cool name.
It reminded me of that.
That's literally why I named it, because I thought Harvard Media was too douchey. And I was like, anyway. But when I started this, I wasn't thinking about an exit. I was just thinking it would be cool to have a company and, just start bolting on things. But now that I'm in a much higher level conversations with Tim and the guests on this podcast, or even the people I interact with school, I'm like, maybe I do want to be an entrepreneur. I'm not saying I have any ambitions to sell Harper Belmont, but how do I become more of an entrepreneur? How do I acquire? How do I invest? How do I exit? And having those types of conversations and thought processes. With that in mind, when you do businesses or you invest or you buy or you start, do you think about the exit from the beginning? Or is it, hey, this would be cool, and if you are able to sell it later, that's cool?
I think some naturally lend themselves as an asset class that would lend itself to an exit. I think some other projects that I work on, I think of them more as projects. Like, this is going to be me, my efforts, my time.
Right.
Once I'm done with the project, I'll close it and be done. So some assets go that way and others don't. Well,
Because I can't imagine and I'm not pejorative on this at all, but like owning a nightclub in the Philippines, that would be cool as shit. And yes, you could probably get your money back and you could sell it and whatever, but I don't think the word exit would ever be equated with that type of business.
So I have it in mind.
Okay.
And just for some feedback, in case no one knows sort of the background on that, after COVID, I mean, the Philippines got flattened. They were locked down for 2 years. So I picked up my first bar. I've been a musician my whole life, so I love music and I love the scene and all that. So I bought my first club out of COVID, coming right out of it at the very end of 2 years, and got it for nothing. A really, really great deal. It opened. It was the only thing open, and so we just crushed it. Like, it was interesting watching my real estate, a multifamily portfolio in the United States, get beat by a nightclub in the Philippines. Like, it was just kind of mind-blowing, like how well it did.
Really?
And I've been buying ever since. I've been buying distressed deals. And the whole point of what I'm doing is I'm rolling them up. I'm going to buy that one, I'm going to buy that one, I'm going to buy that one. I'm buying my fourth one
Pull together and then sell
next
as a
month
package?
and probably sell it to Chinese or Koreans because they're over there and they have cash and they need to move it. But they fund my orphanages, my children's surgeries, and so like I'm not taking that money, but it is cool, it's fun. But yeah, I did start with sort of the end in mind. I'm like, this one's worth this. That's not valuable. One club can go away. But if I'm building a brand, which I'm building, this one is supported by this one and that one, and then there's merchandise and there's the websites and there's the social media.
Will made me the coolest boss ever because I sent my entire Filipino team bottle service at one of his clubs about a year ago, I think it was.
I remember that.
And I just I think I just Venmo'd you the bill or whatever. So like they walked in, Harper Belmont was on the walls. They had the bottle service, do the Harper Belmont signs. And my VA team, they just felt like they were rock stars for the night. I really appreciate that.
I remember that. Was
I'm
cool.
not doing that with our team in the Philippines. As a lender, we do not do bottle service, but I love the idea. We do, just not for the virtual assistants. One interesting thing that you just said, though, that I'll twist back at you. It became evident to me what my product was as a lender during a call with the folks from a company that used to be part of the Credit Suisse umbrella that was bought out by a hedge fund. And we're on this call, and one of the ladies said, yeah, you guys create high-yielding assets that are dependable. And it's just one of those things, you're like, no, I'm a lender. But if you really think about it, these notes we create, these loans, are high-yielding assets. And they're dependable because of our track record in the industry and the fact that we underwrite them cleanly. And you get to thinking, wait a second, we're in a yield-starved environment. People cannot make a return with high interest rates. I mean, I got 12% paper. It's pretty easy to make a return, even with high interest rates. So the way we started looking at it, what he's building is really a cash flow stream with probably an underlying asset base. With that, are you buying the buildings or are you just leasing? Yeah, so the brand is an asset base and you've got this accumulating revenue. Like, I think too many people don't understand, and this is like super nerdy, but you may be producing a product that you don't quite understand the value it has to someone else, right? Like the amount of eyeballs that Harper Belmont is influencing between all the podcasts and all the videos and all the reels. I mean, we're talking millions and millions of eyeballs a month.
What's interesting about this topic, and this is something that my best friend Tyler.
Hang on, I just gotta say.
Oh, just go ahead.
Finish. You may not make money on it today, but it could be the most significant driver in the value someone else puts on your company.
Yes, and Tyler, we've had this conversation you may have remembered Tyler. He worked at Propellier way back when.
Yeah.
He's just my best friend. He did that job just for fun, because he's a real estate guy himself. He said for years that Harper Belmont, that's cool what you do, but I don't think that's what you sell. And he's like, I don't know what it is yet, but that's not your skill set. Because like he said for years, I should get into politics. Just because, like, me personally, like, when I describe myself as more of a media strategist. Yes, the company itself does video production. Yes, we do everything that
Media strategy.
yeah. So I would say I'm more of a media strategist myself. Like, yes, Harper Belmont, we do the cameras, we have the video, we do the editing, we do the social. We do everything to get attention. But like, when it comes to like meeting people, like that's like my sixth sense type thing. Like, you know, what's his face sees dead people. I see who do I need to introduce to you to impact your world. And like one of the things I tell people all the time is like, tell me what you need. And I'm almost like, do you remember that movie Good Luck Chuck from years ago, where it's like, have the one night stand and you know, the next day I meet is the love of your life. Well, I'm like that. It's just not with the one night stand. You tell me what you need, and I have either met somebody in that world 2 weeks before, or I will meet them in the next 2 weeks. And it's just this weird universe, spiritual, God-given gift, whatever it is. It's just this weird thing where like, you tell me this, I will meet that person 2 weeks before or 2 weeks after.
All my Bitcoin mining off the flare gas is from you. You connected me with Chris. And
Don't
with
get me started on that.
360 mining, and I knew I needed to do it, but you were the linchpin, you were the key that got me into the right
we'll
connection.
talk offline on that one.
Talk to Chris.
I have. No, but that's good. But again, to exactly that point is like that's really cool to hear that helped.
You're doing that with Chris?
Alfano,
Different, Chris.
Oh,
360 mining.
Yeah.
I thought we were talking about Maze.
I'm building apartments with Maze.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
It's very incestuous, this world. Everybody knows everybody. Do you do anything with Yale Hamrick?
We talk all the time. He's one of the best single family operators I've ever met. He's amazing. He's one of the outliers.
I've been trying to get him to do real estate content for 6 years.
The thing is, though,
He's like, nah.
Yale, Rocky, and Nick, they just love real estate. They are as jazzed up about real estate as I am about securitizations or bond sales. And it's just, they have zero interest at all of being anything but that. Like and that's awesome. If that's what gives you energy like that, like, go
They
150%.
They clean up.
But even
I finance them. I know.
Oh yeah, you know
like
that.
the Yale, like even with him specifically, like yes, he does this, but he also does the Bitcoin, and he has the Ethereum, and he invests in poker, and I'm like, I didn't even know you can invest in poker.
Yeah.
And it's really cool when you see successful guys they're successful over here, it almost permeates into all these other things. So if you can figure it out here, it's just going back to the overall lesson of business is business. If you can do it here, you could do it in other weight classes per se.
I liked your post the other day. You said you were looking for club managers, no drug addicts, but alcoholics were okay.
Yeah, that's right.
So I put militaryhire.com. So it's like,
that was you.
I mean, it's a great place to find alcoholics that like to be in the club.
Yeah. So what's next? What's the fund you're raising for the Bitcoin mining? Are you doing 1 or 2 testers? Are you trying to deploy 100, 1,000, 1,000,000? Like, what's the goal there?
The goal is whatever my investors have appetite for. I don't need it. I really like Bitcoin and it helps me participate in the ecosystem. I have an edge compared to almost anybody else with the flare gas. So as long as my investors like the return profile that we can offer them, which is solid, but it's really educating that I have a bunch of real estate investors. When I told them we're mining Bitcoin in the oil and gas field, they're like, what? What are you doing? So
it's really a mobile mine, there's a digital coin, and there's a real oil well. Is that what I heard?
Again, the best way to do it is if you get eyeballs on the infrastructure, it clicks. Because when it's just like ones and zeros on the screen, it's like, oh, that's a scam.
Yeah.
But when you see the amount of money that goes in these data centers and the energy and all that and the contracts, that's what clicked for me at least.
I'd like to talk about that. I've got a good friend that owns a bunch of oil and gas, and I know he loves Bitcoin as an investment. We were talking the other day. He's like, I said, hey, you just got that Mustang? He goes, nope, sold it, bought Bitcoin. I was like, all right, man. Like, you could have called me out about the Mustang.
So are you one of these guys that 8 pans hold it, or you're like, hey, 100K is a pretty good top. Let me exit a little bit and then I'll buy back in when it drops to 60.
I'm not selling ever.
Okay, you just keep buying.
Every dip I'll keep buying. I think it's going to 13, 15 million a coin in 20 years from now. So if I sold it 100,000 and it's sitting at 15 million,
And it never
I'm
dips.
gonna be pretty upset. So you can borrow against your Bitcoin. It's a pristine collateral. Like you can use it as collateral and you can pull it out. The lender can get it. So they like to lend on it. It's not like a house where you got to go foreclose, do all this legal shit. Like
What lenders are doing that? Is it
Unchained's
Unchained?
one of the best ones. A lot of the exchanges will do it too. But Cantor Fitzgerald out of Wall Street, they're going to roll out a $2 billion lending fund here in a couple. He's the Commerce Secretary under Trump now. So I mean, it's the smartest and the richest people I know are in Bitcoin.
Same.
They really are, and that blew my mind at first. And I wanted to say the connection of the oil and gas and the Bitcoin. That's what really clicked for me too. It's proof of work. You can't print Bitcoin out of nothing. If you want to see how Bitcoin is formed, go out to an oil well, see it flaring huge plumes of oil and smoke and gas. We grab it, we clean it up, we run it through a generator, and it's making all this noise and all this heat and all this energy. It requires energy to create Bitcoin. That's why it's real. It connects the virtual with the real boots on the ground, mud, dirt, and grit of reality.
So I just saw a headline either yesterday or the day before yesterday in Marathon Holdings, Digital Marathon. They're buying wind farms now.
Okay.
Their Marathon is one of these giant Bitcoin mining, and now they're buying clean energy. It's like, I mean, it's just crazy that it's this full circle. Like, instead of like buying energy, let's just buy the energy provider.
Yeah. In El Salvador, they're mining Bitcoin on volcanoes.
Yeah.
Just wherever they can get cheap energy. That's how they're doing it.
So is Bitcoin kind of like the end-all be-all future, or do you see yourself going back into other investment classes, or what's the future hold for Will Crozier?
I love real estate. I'll always be in real estate, but I think there's cycles, and I think right now we're in you can make money in real estate anytime, right? Like we all know that. Sometimes it's just a lot harder than other times. Right now is one of those more difficult times. Like to go out and do a multifamily deal, I'm not gonna triple my money in 24 months like I used to do on giant portfolios, right?
Right.
I love multifamily. I love real estate. I'm building apartments, a couple hundred units with Chris Mays right now. I'll do single families. I'm building a single family house with Chris Mays right now, so big luxury homes. And I love buying small businesses. Small businesses are cash cows. Like you get in the right situation, you evaluate it, you see if they're underperforming, you pair it together with something else. Suddenly you're making 50% on your money, 90% on your money, or 20% if it's a 20-year-old business that's not going anywhere. I really love small businesses.
What do you consider small business?
5 million in revenue is probably a pretty sweet spot that's too small for the bigger players, but too big for most small SBA borrowers and all that.
Well, it was we were talking about this earlier today about how there's always levels. There's always somebody bigger than you. And I was talking to these a couple of guys I'm working with in a mergers and acquisition fund, and they specialize in that $5 to $50 million mergers and acquisitions. And then we're at lunch, and this woman walks up, and they immediately sit up. So I immediately assume that this person's important, and she basically alluded to oh, how cute, 5 to 50 million.
Yep.
Because she doesn't touch anything less than $1 billion or something.
Yep.
And we were joking about earlier, her friends and family fee is $1 million to do her services. I was like, that's a pretty significant friends and family discount. It's still $1 million. So,
Yeah.
But again, though, it goes back to that there's always levels of that 5 million or 50 million or 500 or 5 billion or 500 trillion or whatever it is.
What'd you do before you got into multifamily?
Single family.
Yeah. What'd you do before that?
I bought old muscle cars and restored them in California to try to pay my tuition, and was sending them up to New York and back to Detroit.
There you go.
Back home, and we had rust-free cars down there, and they wanted them, and I would do a pretty average so-so job in restoring them, but they liked it and they pay. I wanted to make more money than that, so that's when I got into flipping houses.
So what personality trait or character trait do you feel like has been the most beneficial as you not only grew, but kept your blinders off and looked at and got into different types of businesses in different locations?
I think about this sometimes, like, why did I get successful and some of my peers are, doing the 9-to-5 thing? And you have to ponder that sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, what happened? Just luck? Just work? Usually a combination of the two. But personality things with me, I think that really played a factor was I was always an outsider. Like, we moved every year. My dad wasn't in the military, he's just a gypsy. So we moved. So I never had long-term friends. So I never really got into a certain rut or stride to where I'm doing what my buddies are doing and they're all doing this, so I'm gonna do it too. I was always on the outside. So that made me kind of think that way. Like, I don't need to get the career that's impressing people, that's gonna look good on my resume. I could really march to my own beat. I think that that's underrated, being an outsider. It sets you up for probably a really real high or a real low if you do it wrong. So I think that that's played a big part. I think also my choice to drop out of school played a part. I see people way smarter than me that finished, and it really put them on a path for the good life, but not the great life. I think we all hear that, and they have a good life. I think mine has been more colorful and more adventure and those sorts of things because of those risks.
I tell my son, my 15-year-old, all the time, because he's super dedicated to sports and he's a good young man, and he doesn't want to be at parties where people are drinking or smoking or vaping. It's one of those things, like a kid nowadays can't turn around without a kid vaping in their face. And he's like, but Dad, it's hard because all my friends are there. I said, the cool thing is when you're my age, you won't remember half their names. And the ones that you remember their names, it's probably for the wrong reason.
Yeah.
I said, so just take solace in the fact that you're committed to where you're going. And, because look, he says he's toured Harvard, MIT,
Wow.
Yale, and Columbia.
Wow.
And he's a freshman in high school. And I've always told him, I was like, look, you'll play Division I sports or you'll go to an Ivy League school. And he's like, well, Dad, he wants to be an entrepreneur. I was like, that's cool. You'll go have that network, you'll get that education, and you'll come up with a great business idea, and we'll do it together.
Yeah.
And then we'll do another one. Then we'll do another one.
Yep.
I love to jump on this topic, and just because like, and also to piggyback on what you were talking about, because in the executive MBA program at SMU, to address what you were saying earlier, I would say in my cohort of 35 people, there's only about 4 or 5 entrepreneurs. Some have exits, some have success, but the rest are like that high level executive VP or trying to get to that level. They all do very, very well. That 150 to 300,000 salary range, which I would argue is extremely, extremely good. But there's a ceiling. Some of them may get to $1 million a year, but probably if they can get to 400 or 500 a year, that's probably the most they'll ever go. But as an entrepreneur, like with me, with what I'm doing, even with this company, I eat shit daily. But if it works, then my ceiling is, I don't have a ceiling. So my floor is way, way lower, but I don't have a ceiling. And then to address what you were talking about, I think schools matter. I think that's one of the biggest problems that doesn't get conveyed to younger people is where you go matters. What you study matters less than where you go. Because at SMU, especially in DFW, that carries weight. Now, my undergrad from North Texas, nobody cares. You know, UT carries weight, A&M, and that alumni, oh, you went to SMU? Cool, let's talk. Hey, I'm an alumni from SMU, love to been here. Cool, I'll take that meeting. Whereas I went to, so-and-so university that's nobody ever heard of.
Yeah.
Look, I told both of my sons from
So
an
I
early
think
age.
college would be good.
Yeah. The most
You approve?
I approve.
The most successful people I know are either like some silly, crazy entrepreneur, self-made story, or they have a degree, either a major or minor in finance. Because you don't understand how much money is really out there. I mean, everybody throws around the trillion number like it's kind of like a cool thing. But when I worked with Blackstone, to make a $1 billion decision was a weekly occurrence. Mm-hmm. Like, when we're talking about, well, we'll do a $200 million securitization and retain the B piece. How much is that? 50 million? Okay, yeah, we'll just do cash with that. And then we'll lever that and we'll sell that and we'll sell this to a life insurance company. And you're number one, to talk about a conversation I had to stop several times to ask, what the hell are you talking about? But like, you get through it and they're like, okay, so they're gonna do a $200 million transaction. That's what you started with. And they're gonna make 12 points of net profit on that money. And you're just like, whoa, that's a lot of coin. Like, so when you learn the way the financial system works and the way money works and the way you can arbitrage, you can get the securities, sell covered calls, you can buy a AAA rated bond and then go like get a loan against it. And people are like, well, why would they ever buy it for 3%? It's like, because they can get an 8% loan against it. And before you know it, they're actually making 18% on their freaking money because they're playing the financial system. So I've told both of my sons, I don't give a shit what you major in. I don't care if you actually do that. I don't care. You're gonna go to college or the Marine Corps, your choice, and you're gonna get a major or a minor in finance. Or you're on your own, good luck. Because I didn't get that education.
Right.
And I need more of that because I intend to have a pile of money. And that knowledge, the lady that won't work for less than $1 million for friends and family, the reason is she knows how to look at things different than the rest of the world. The rest of the world does not understand the knowledge she has.
And one of the things in that conversation I had with her about the network, and this is...
Oh, she talked to you? I'm just kidding. Hello? Write her a check?
Oh, shit, I can't get out with this. No, but because I was talking to her, because like one of the funny things I tell people is like, especially being in school, is like, academically, I'm no help. But networking, I got you. And I was telling her that, and she's like, that is probably the best skill you can have. And this is after she gave a lecture about all these case studies that she had. My friend here, my friend here, my friend here, and there's all these giant people. And it gave me a little bit more confidence in business, just hearing from someone like that saying, no, that's a really good skill set. A lot of people don't have that.
Right.
And now I'm like, okay, so how do I make money from that?
Right.
But the overall point is it'll come.
So
Karma,
it's weird
reciprocity.
to hear successful entrepreneurs talking about, we didn't go to college and one of the best things could have been that you dropped out. But then I'm also then saying that I am requiring my children to. And it may sound like hypocrisy, but, I think there's an old saying, weak men make hard times make strong men make good times, and good times make weak men, right? And they go circle. And as a dad, as a leader of my family, I'm trying to find ways to empower my children to have that aggression or that desire just in a different direction. Maybe it's not they have to, as you said, eat shit for the first decade of the business and work 8 days a week, right? And maybe instead they can think bigger and achieve a different level of consciousness and contemplation than I have been able to.
Well, education can mean a lot of things. Education could be university. Education could be hard knocks. Could be the military. It could be the fact that you could, Ty Lopez, and have 1,000 books in your garage that you don't read, that you say you read. That could be education. That was shots. I don't know, Ty. I'm just joking. But but it could be anything. But the key thing is that you have to keep learning. So we started with credit cards. You're educated on that because you were fascinated, and then you just jumped in those blogs.
Yeah.
So you have to have that desire to learn.
Yeah.
Well, no, I think your suggestion for your kids to do finance is exactly, just because it was a good decision for me not to go to school, my own kids, I tell them go to finance or go to law school. If you go to law school, they're going to teach you how to think, to analyze, to be detailed, or go into finance. It's the language of money. Right. How important is money in this world? Pretty darn. So why not speak the language of money? If you're fluent in it, you have such an advantage. Right. Not just in consumer purchases, not just in, how to negotiate a rate on your house, but the whole spectrum. It's a massive advantage. If you can speak the language of money, I think it's more important than, learning some coding skill that is going to pigeonhole you for the year 2024, and then your skill set is gone.
Right.
2 years later.
There's a reason, to your point, the language of money. So SMU Cox School of Business, the money that the Cox School of Business brings in pays for all the other arts.
Yeah.
So even though SMU is this big old institution, has all more money than, whatever, it's actually the School of Business that pays for all of it. And then the grad school for Cox pays for the Cox School of Business. So all these other little institutions, the law school and the arts and all this other stuff, they're there because of the Cox School of Business. And again, to your point, it's the language of money.
So John Dutton, right? You said make one kid become an attorney, the other become finance.
Right.
And then one of them, spoilers, one of those kids kills him or something.
Yeah, it's the attorney. Well, man, I appreciate you coming in.
This is great.
It's always funny after 20-something years in this industry, in this town, with the Facebook, how you feel like you know someone, but you've actually never met them. So I personally have derived a lot of joy out of meeting you in person.
It's great. I saw you getting grilled on Facebook the other day. Someone's posting screenshots calling you a scam. And I was just like, I don't know him, but I know who he runs with, and I'm pretty sure this guy is full of crap.
What were you getting grilled for?
The son of a borrower didn't like that I wouldn't extend the loan past the maturity date, and I'm a scam artist, and I'm out for blood, blah, blah, blah.
I don't understand how you can be called somebody a scam artist when you requested money, you paid for money, and you got the money.
I didn't comment. I mean,
good for you. You're growing.
Except for I did comment that I requested the admins leave the post up because I have nothing to hide. It was in, several of the admins sent me text messages like, hey, you want us to take this down? I'm like, nah, it's good. I mean, in business, you're always going to have problems, and someone's always going to get wound up about something. And, we offered to have a translator to help them figure things out, and we offered an extension, but there's terms with the extension, and it is what it is.
But to Will's point, you see who you run with, that's good enough.
Yeah, it really is. And it's a nice network for that reason. I could reach out to you, even though we had never really sat down and chat, and I'm pretty darn sure, based on your association and Yale and Chris, I'll be fine with it.
But it goes back to, and I'm promise we're wrapping up, but this is a full bow circle. When you have trusted resources, trusted connections or network that, hey, they vouch, therefore this is okay, whether that be a person, whether that be information. And that's why that whole vouching system is so valuable. And that's why, hey, if you burn that, you're really screwing up.
We actually got business off that post. It's funny you bring that up because so many of my friends and borrowers, even one individual that is in default with us because of maturity, kind of came to my defense that I had people saying, well, so-and-so just commented that you're a stand-up guy and they've liked doing business with your company. Could you have someone call me? Like, so it's one of those things, like I think there's a lot of people that like a day like that could have really upset them. I was at the ranch hunting. I didn't care. I told the moderator, leave it up. I got on there and said, due to privacy laws and confidential information laws, I cannot address any of this issue in public unless my borrower comes on here and waives all rights to all confidentiality and all personal information. Otherwise, I have nothing to say. I wish you the best of luck.
Yeah.
And I got business out of it, so
That's all that matters.
So,
Will Crozier, thank you so much for being here.
heck yeah.
How long is the flight from here to the Philippines?
So I fly to New York, and in New York, I kid you not, I'm taking the longest flight in the world. I'm flying from New York to Singapore. It's 18 hours nonstop. That's in business class. It's on point.
Is that
Singapore
why
Airlines.
you're doing it? Just because the flex and because it's first class?
It was free. That's why.
he likes the flagship lounge at JFK.
Something like that. So yeah, 18-hour flight to Singapore, another 3 to Manila, something like that.
And when are you coming back?
I don't know. Probably when it just gets a little warmer here. Maybe end of February, early March, when the sun comes up a little bit.
Okay. So you're like, I'm out for the next 3 months.
Yeah. Yeah, I love DFW. This is home, but I usually head out around August for a while, and I head out around January for a while too.
Well, I'm so glad this was able to work out.
Yeah, man.
Being able to bring you in here and sit down and just talk.
Merry Christmas in the Philippines.
Thank you.
Right?
They do it hard over there.
Oh,
They
I know,
really
I
go.
remember. All right, cool. Well, I appreciate you.
Yep.
Appreciate you. We'll see you next week.
Perfect.